Before we dive in, if you love epic tales of war, strategy, hit that subscribe and like button, turn on notifications, and join our growing legion of warriors. Now, let's begin. Imagine a universe teeming with ancient civilizations, some wise and enlightened, others ruthless and tyrannical. The Milky Way had long been ruled by the Zenith Accord, a coalition of hyper-advanced alien species that had shaped the galaxy for over 100,000 years. They believed in order, in controlled evolution. They watched young species, judged them, and if necessary, eliminated them before they became a threat. Humanity was insignificant in their eyes, a primitive, war-torn species confined to a single world, bound by the limits of their own short lives. The Accord had seen civilizations like Earth before, races that burned bright but ultimately consumed themselves in nuclear fire or societal collapse. The High Council of the Accord concluded that humanity would be no different. They observed, they waited. And then, they made their decision. The extermination order was issued. Earth was to be purged before humans could reach interstellar space. A fleet was dispatched, led by the Zalzareth, a species of biomechanical beings who specialized in planetary sterilization. Their ships, vast and bristling with energy cannons, emerged from hyperspace just beyond the moon, cloaking themselves from human detection. The process would be swift, clinical, and above all, unnoticed. But something was wrong. As the fleet prepared to unleash their world-killing bombardment, their long-range sensors picked up something impossible. Deep within Earth's data networks, signals pulsed in chaotic yet deliberate patterns. Encrypted transmissions ricocheted across satellites, and then, as if the planet itself had noticed them, a message was sent directly into their systems. A simple sentence. "We see you." The Accord had never been answered before. Not like this. Not by a species that was supposed to be blind to the vastness beyond their atmosphere. And then, one by one, the warships began to lose control. Their navigation systems locked up. Artificial intelligences screamed warnings in alien tongues. Entire fleets vanished into black voids of nothingness. And on Earth, humanity remained oblivious. Or so it seemed. Because in the darkest corners of human history, in the classified depths of secret projects, something had awakened. A force the Zenith Accord had never accounted for. Humanity wasn't just surviving the coming storm, they had been waiting for it. The Zalzareth warships, once poised to erase Earth from existence, now drifted lifeless in space. No weapons had been fired, no battles had been fought, yet the Zenith Accord's sterilization fleet had been dismantled without a trace of resistance. The High Council was baffled. How could a species so primitive, so unevolved, disable some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy? They scoured Earth's technological archives, infiltrating satellite networks and planetary defense grids, searching for an answer. What they found made no sense. By all accounts, humanity was exactly as they had believed. Fractured, warring, barely capable of interplanetary travel. Yet something else lurked beneath the surface. It wasn't human technology that had intervened. It wasn't any known weapon or scientific breakthrough. It was something older. Deep beneath the Arctic ice, hidden within government black sites, and buried under the sands of forgotten battlefields, humanity had been experimenting with forces they didn't fully understand. The experiments had begun centuries ago, with whispers of mind control, precognition, and something more. Every war, every conflict, every inexplicable moment of human survival was not a mere accident of fate. It was a pattern. The Zenith Accord had been studying humanity, but humanity had been studying something else. In the underground research facility known only as Project Dominion, a team of scientists had uncovered something beyond comprehension. An anomaly buried within the very fabric of human evolution. A genetic mutation, ancient and dormant, yet unmistakably engineered. It wasn't alien, but it wasn't natural either. It was a fail-safe. A response mechanism designed for one purpose: to activate when humanity was threatened by extinction. And now, it had. The researchers had no idea who or what had placed this mutation within human DNA. But they did know one thing. It was waking up. Across the planet, Certain individuals were beginning to change. Their thoughts moved faster. Their minds stretched beyond the limits of time. Some could see things before they happened, while others could manipulate reality itself in ways that defied physics. And then, a signal pulsed out from Earth, reaching beyond the solar system. The Zenith Accord, for the first time in 100,000 years, felt something they had long forgotten. Fear. The signal that pulsed from Earth was not a distress call, nor was it a declaration of war. It was something infinitely more terrifying. It was a response, a ripple through subspace, bending the very fabric of reality as it spread outward like a warning, or an invitation. Across the galaxy, civilizations accustomed to seeing humanity as insignificant insects suddenly felt a cold presence enter their networks, their minds, their very bones. Governments of distant star empires intercepted the signal, decoding its patterns, its shifting frequencies. And what they found was incomprehensible. The message was not in any known language, yet every species understood it. It spoke not in words but in raw intent, a concept that bypassed logic and reason, tapping into something primal and undeniable. It simply said, "You were right to fear us, but it is already too late." Panic spread like wildfire. The Zenith Accord scrambled to assemble their forces, deploying fleets larger than any in recorded history. Their armadas stretched across the void like a tidal wave, preparing to descend upon Earth and burn it down to its very atoms. But as their warships surged forward, something else moved in the darkness between the stars, a phenomenon no one had ever seen before. The first fleet to reach Earth's solar system never even had time to react. One moment, their warships were screaming through hyperspace, weapons primed, shields raised. The next, they were gone. No wreckage, no debris. Just a void where thousands of ships had once existed. Across the Zenith Accord's homeworlds, transmissions began to fail. AI networks, once considered unbreakable, collapsed under an invisible force. Their databases twisted, rewriting themselves with impossible sequences of human symbols, patterns that should have been meaningless, yet carried something alive within them. It was then that the High Council understood. Humanity hadn't just evolved technologically, they had evolved mentally, and whatever they had become, it was no longer bound by physics, by time, or even by the fragile rules of reality. They weren't fighting a species anymore. They were fighting an idea, a force that had slumbered within human minds for eons, waiting for the moment it was needed, and, now, across the galaxy, something far worse than war had begun. A shift. The laws of the universe were no longer stable. The Accord's most powerful weapons failed to fire. Their starbases crumbled under unseen forces, and their leaders, ancient, wise, and unshakable, began to whisper of things they saw in the dark. Humanity had not just become a threat. They had become a nightmare. Panic spread like a plague across the Zenith Accord's core worlds. In the heart of their greatest cities, leaders of empires that had ruled for millennia sat frozen in silent terror. Their fleets were gone, their weapons failed, their defenses, once impenetrable, became meaningless against an enemy they could not see, could not understand, and worst of all, could not stop. Across the galaxy, something was unraveling. The fundamental constants of physics wavered, as if the very fabric of reality was bending under the presence of something new. Weapons designed to annihilate entire planets misfired, collapsing into swirling voids that devoured everything in their path. Time itself began to break. On some worlds, centuries passed in seconds, while others were trapped in frozen moments, their inhabitants forever screaming in silent agony. And then, the whispers began. At first, they were subtle. The Accord scientists dismissed them as anomalies, echoes in subspace, fragments of intercepted transmissions. But soon, they became impossible to ignore. Soldiers aboard warships heard voices, in their own minds, speaking in their own tongues. The voices told them secrets, things no one else could know. The mistakes of their ancestors, the betrayals hidden in their histories, the darkest thoughts in their hearts. And then, the voices laughed. It was not the sound of a single entity. It was millions, billions, an entire species thinking as one. The Zenith Accord had always believed that superior technology, Superior strategy and superior intelligence were the only paths to dominance. But now, they faced something that defied every rule they had ever known. Humanity had transcended beyond physical warfare. They no longer needed fleets, weapons, or diplomacy. They had become something else entirely. Across the Accord's territory, chaos reigned. Empires collapsed overnight as their rulers fell into madness, unable to silence the thoughts invading their minds. Some worlds, desperate to escape, shut down their hyperspace drives, isolating themselves in futile hope. Others prayed to the unknown force, whispering desperate bargains into the void. But there were no gods listening, only humanity, and humanity was no longer merciful. In the depths of the Accord's archives, a single forgotten report resurfaced, a relic from eons past buried beneath layers of secrecy. It spoke of a long-dead civilization, one that had once ruled a galaxy not unlike their own, a species that had advanced far beyond any of its peers, before vanishing without a trace. A single phrase was left behind in their final transmission: "Beware the ones who dream." And now, for the first time in their long, immortal existence, the Zenith Accord understood what that meant. They had not just miscalculated, they had doomed themselves. The Zenith Accord's greatest fleets had fallen. Their planetary networks collapsed under an unseen force. Their leaders, once gods among lesser species, now trembled in silence, haunted by whispers they could not escape. And then, without warning, worlds began to disappear. Not destroyed, not conquered, erased. Entire planetary systems blinked out of existence, vanishing as if they had never been. Ancient civilizations, some older than the Accord itself, were reduced to nothing more than fading memories. No wreckage remained. No survivors escaped. It was not a war, it was a purge. The Zenith Accord had always believed in controlling evolution, in deciding which species were worthy to exist among the stars. But in their arrogance, they had overlooked the one species that had never played by their rules. Humanity had not just evolved technologically, nor had they simply advanced beyond their primitive state. They had become the architects of reality itself. Somewhere, deep in the void between galaxies, something was shifting. A presence, vast and unknowable, stirred awake. It was not a god, it was not an empire. It was humanity's collective will, transcending time and space, rewriting the very essence of the cosmos. They were no longer bound by the physical world. They had become something greater, an intelligence that no longer needed ships, weapons, or armies. They simply decided what existed and what did not. The Zenith Accord, for all their millennia of power, had no counter to this. They sent ambassadors to Earth, desperate to negotiate. They offered surrender, peace, even servitude. But no answer came, because Earth was empty. The planet remained, orbiting its sun as it always had, its cities untouched, its landscapes unchanged. But there were no humans left, no bodies, no remains, just absence. The species that had once been confined to a single world had outgrown its physical form. They had become an idea, a force beyond comprehension. And now, as the Zenith Accord crumbled into nothingness, the last of its survivors heard the final message that would ever be spoken to them. A whisper in the dark. "You should have let us be." And then, silence. The war was over before it had even begun, because humanity had not just won. They had become something the universe would never understand. The Zenith Accord was no more. Their fleets had vanished. Their homeworlds were nothing but distant memories, erased so thoroughly that even the concept of their existence faded from the minds of those who remained. Their history had been undone, rewritten by an intelligence so vast, so incomprehensible, that it no longer followed the rules of cause and effect. But the nightmare was not over. The remaining civilizations of the galaxy, those that had once looked to the Accord for leadership, for guidance, now lived in the shadow of something they could not define. Humanity no longer existed in the way lesser beings understood existence. There were no empires, no armies, no planets flying the banner of mankind. Yet they were everywhere. Entire planets awoke to find their skies filled with shifting constellations. Stars that had never been there before, forming patterns that resembled human eyes, watching, waiting. On distant worlds, scholars and priests alike began to hear whispers in their minds, voices that spoke in forgotten languages, revealing secrets that shattered their sanity. Some civilizations tried to resist. They built fleets. They formed alliances. They crafted weapons designed to attack something that had no form, no weakness. But as their ships launched into the void, they found themselves returning to their homeworlds without memory of ever leaving. Time looped. Stars flickered between life and death. The very laws of reality bent to humanity's will. And then, one by one, the remaining species of the galaxy began to understand the truth. This was not war. This was not conquest. This was correction. Humanity had seen the way the galaxy worked, the cycle of domination, suppression, and destruction, and they had rejected it. They had remade themselves into something beyond war, beyond politics, beyond the very limits of existence. They were not rulers. They were editors. The universe itself had become theirs to shape. The most ancient races, those who had watched over the stars since time immemorial, whispered among themselves, speaking the only words that made sense in the wake of the catastrophe. They were never meant to reach this point. We should have stopped them sooner. But it was too late. The last remnants of the old galaxy, those who had survived, knew only one truth. Humanity was still watching. They did not need fleets, nor weapons, nor armies. They had become the unseen force behind the cosmos, and if the universe ever dared to repeat its mistakes, humanity would erase it. For the first time in the history of the universe, there was no war, no conquerors, no oppressed, no empires rising and falling in an endless cycle of destruction, because there was only one law now: humanity's will. Entire species lived in constant unease, aware that they existed only because humanity allowed it. No decrees were issued, no terms were given, but the message was clear. There were no second chances, no appeals for mercy. Those who had survived the vanishing war whispered among themselves, fearful of drawing attention, terrified of what might happen if they ever forgot what had happened, because forgetting was the worst fate of all. Across the void, some dared to ask, what had humanity become? Was it ascension? Some form of divine evolution? Or had they become something else? Something that no longer belonged in the universe they had once fought to survive in? The answer was unknowable. On worlds untouched by the purge, strange phenomena continued to unfold. Rulers woke up screaming in terror, with memories of lives they had never lived. Visions of Earth, of human faces staring back at them from mirrors, speaking in tongues they could almost understand. Others saw structures appearing in the deep void, vast, impossible megastructures that seemed to be made of thought itself, their shapes shifting, rewriting themselves as if deciding what they should be. And then, there were the disappearances. Not of people, not of planets, but of ideas. Entire concepts, once fundamental to certain civilizations, were simply gone. A species that had built its society around war no longer understood the meaning of violence. Another, which had once ruled through deception and secrecy, found itself incapable of telling anything but the truth. Reality had been rewritten from the inside out. The greatest minds of the surviving species gathered in secret, desperate to understand the limits of humanity's new power. Was there still something left of them? Some remnant of their former selves? Were they still human, or had they become the universe itself? But there was no answer, because the truth was far more terrifying. Humanity was still evolving. What they had done to the Zenith Accord, to the Galactic Order, to the very fabric of existence, was only the beginning. And deep in the void, beyond the reach of any known civilization, a final message appeared, engraved upon the event horizon of a dying star, written in a language that had no origin, no history. A message seen only by those who dared to look too long into the abyss. We were never your nightmare. You were ours. And now, we are awake.